Hello friends, what's going on, and welcome on back to Football Therapy with me, your host Jan. As always, mate, I do hope you're doing well, friend. I really do hope that. And welcome back to your daily Chelsea news briefing. Of course, this is where I learn to speak English first, but this is where I reflect on what's being said about Chelsea across the global footballing media, tell you what I think about it, but as always, more importantly, open up the conversation with you guys. This is what we're here for. It's a community here on Football Therapy. A chilly day here on Christmas Eve. It's beginning to look a lot like Christmas. I won't sing anymore, but I had to get something festive in early doors for those who do celebrate. Right, in today's piece of content, we are reflecting on a new partner. No, not front of shirt. That will never come. That is the the peculiar edging situation of Chelsea and a main sponsor. Maybe it's a new social experiment and we will never get a sponsor again. But we've got an official airline partner, so cheers to that. Terribly exciting. I I jest, of course, but that's something. Presumably some money in the coffers. There is other stuff to talk about. David Ornstein has gone on NBC and confirmed that Chelsea are interested in Elliot Anderson. I might go into that a little bit more because, we've got some incredible midfield talent. Caicedo, Fernandes, and let's say Reece James. 3 top-tier available midfielders. Let's call James a midfielder. But of course, in the perhaps... We know Lavia's, although very highly rated, unreliable. What's going on with Asugo? Is he going to be a player that Maresca likes and turns to? So we'll speak a bit about Elliot Anderson. Defender. Interesting. We've seen a really good relationship being cultivated between Fofana and Chalobah of late. Colwill will eventually return from injury. Chelsea have an option to recall Aaron Anselmino from Borussia Dortmund. We'll speak about that. And apparently we're monitoring a Serie A centre-back called Honest Ahanor. I don't know if that's how you pronounce it, but his first name is Honest. So we can presume he is not a liar. Terribly sorry for that. And for a little bit of a laugh, I ruddy dislike thoroughly ESPN, but they've done a special on each team and transfer news. So I wanted to read the Chelsea section. I mean, when I say I dislike them, it's because of the pundits, those, Steve Nicol and all those sausages that just generally don't know what they're talking about. But, if you watch Football Therapy and you're probably a good part of the footballing community, we probably in unison dislike that that TV show. But I do want to just read the Chelsea segment because it's Tuesday, right? I was expecting because we're nearing January, a deal sheet or something from the Athletic. Hasn't come to pass, so we'll see what this ESPN article's saying. It's going to be a nice piece of content, so thank you for joining me as always. I'm delighted to have you here with me. Relax, get comfortable, pour yourself a drink. Please do consider liking this video, subscribing if you're a returning visitor and you think, you know what, I haven't subscribed, now's the time. Let's hop aboard, let's subscribe to Football Therapy. That's great. And of course, I'll say... This should be available on all podcast platforms, but for the moment, while I just try and get it back onto Apple Podcasts, you may need to listen to this on Spotify if you're a listener and not necessarily a watcher. So yes, this should be available on Spotify, and if you want to go over there, follow, give me 5-star rating, mate, that'd be nice. Housework out of the way. So, let's get into the big, sexy stuff and speak about how Chelsea have an official airline partner. Now, don't worry, guys, I'm not going to spend much. In fact, I'm going to spend very little time speaking about this. But Chelsea Football Club and Pegasus Airlines, which, by the way, I haven't even heard of until now, announce a new global multi-year partnership that sees Pegasus become the club's official airline partner. This extends across both men's and women's team. The partnership brings together dynamic organizations with a shared commitment of innovation, global growth, and connecting people, whether through football or travel. Right, well, yeah, apparently they were launched in 2005, Pegasus Airlines. This is worth mentioning because it's a multi-year partnership. Now, I wanted to speak about this because, there's one thing that's been an embarrassment from this ownership group. I mean, you might argue there's been a few things, but certainly for me, the biggest thing was Clear Lake Capital came in and they're like, yeah, we're money people. We understand business, yeah? That's our thing. Yeah, just don't worry about everything else. We'll sort out all the marketing, the commercial stuff. We got that locked down, and we've never had a permanent sponsor under them, which is just really dumb. Yeah, we had Damac, we had Infinite Athlete, which were temporary sort of slot fillers in terms of front of shirt sponsorship. We're even rocking a temporary till end of season sleeve sponsor at the moment. So of course we've already reacted to the news that apparently in 2026 they're going to have a long-term sleeve partner locked down. It was kind of like, we'll believe it when we see it. But the fact how they've signed and agreed and announced just this morning a multi-year deal with an airline shows that maybe, just maybe, somewhere in a room deep within the bowels of Chelsea's offices, someone's becoming competent. and they're going to start getting deals over the line. So, right. I mean, I think everyone's got an airline partner, all the big boys. Sorry, I got a bit of like hay fever. Hay fever in winter. Maybe some sort of allergic reaction. Anyway, it's one thing done. Now you get a long-term sleeve sponsor and a long-term front of shirt sponsor. And we will be laughing. Righty hell, let's move on to the next part of the video. We'll speak about a defender first, then Elliot Anderson, then we'll look at the ESPN wind up? It probably is a wind up. I was going to say roundup. Patrick Berger of Sky Deutschland, I believe, who does transfer update, D-Show, has talked about how Chelsea actually have an option to recall Argentine centre-back Aaron Anselmino from Borussia Dortmund in January, so like in the coming days, due to not reaching the minimum minutes as a result of his injury. So not because they don't fancy him, he was injured, therefore he hasn't reached the threshold of a certain minutes, for them to recall. I'm just going to quickly have a look at how many games he's played this season. He's still only 20 years old. Still only 20 years old. Very young. In my head, I was expecting to see, 23 or something. Only 4 appearances, 347 minutes. He scored in his debut, didn't he? He has played 2 appearances in the Champions League. It looks like the full games, pretty much. Yeah, man. And he's played in the Pokal as well, which is like the FA Cup. So he has played across all competitions, seen as a good guy. I mean, to be honest, like, I'm looking, guys. He's played 4 appearances in the Bundesliga. I think maybe only 3 of them have been starts as well. He's played 347 minutes. So yeah, only, I think, feel free to correct me if I'm wrong, 3 starts in the Bundesliga for Dortmund this season. And he's won 2 Man of the Match awards. That's amazing for like a 20-year-old lonely centre-back to win 2 Man of the Matches in 3 starts. I think it's 3 starts. That's incredible, man. If you, like, as a centre-back, finish the season with a couple of Man of the Match awards, you'd be like, yeah, I'm pretty happy with that. That's pretty good over a 38-game season or whatever. But to do it in, like, 3 starts, 2 Man of the Match awards, I think they rate him really, really highly. I think Chelsea rate Aaron Anselmino really, really highly. So it's interesting that they have the option, but I think it would be very cruel to recall him, because it's not because they don't want to play him. It's because he's been injured and they do want to play him. I hope I'm correct in assuming that by looking at this data that's presented in front of me. So that, if Maresca truly is still desperate for extra centre-back, cover, if he's seen Benoit and Tosin and he's like, I just don't really fancy this at the moment. Of course, he's got Chalobah and he's got Wes, who he likes both. I think Chalobah was fortunate not to concede a penalty. Wes did an absolute, howler in terms of giving away the first goal to Newcastle. So neither's been perfect. Cole will come back, and of course we talk about the criminally underused Joshua Champong. But he plays all over the gaff. He plays at centre-back, it's either side, right-back, central defensive midfield. But regardless, despite being so positionally versatile, the young English Chelsea defender, he's been underused. Especially, Maresca says it himself. He loves him. He wishes, the game against Leeds, he says his biggest regret wasn't playing him, and basically dug out Tosin and said he was a bad performer on the day. So Josh is underused. I think probably the best thing for Aaron Anselmino is to stay at Borussia Dortmund, especially if he's putting in good performances when he does have the time to play. And maybe, if he's fit for the second half of the season, hopefully he can end, with quite a few more caps or sort of appearances rather for Dortmund. They're in the Champions League. I don't know if they were still in the Pokal, but they're, it's a high level loan. It's a really sort of high level football. I'm just going to look at the Bundesliga table as I speak to you to see where Borussia Dortmund are. They're second. Obviously they're miles off. This is vintage. This is vintage Bundesliga table. Bayern Munich 41 points in first place. Second place, Borussia Dortmund with 32 points. Nearly 10 points off, nearly double digits already before Christmas. So this is vintage Bundesliga. Leverkusen are in third, 3 points off them. So pretty much, what you'd expect. So it's still a high level loan for Aaron Anselmino, and I think we should keep him there personally. I think that's probably what is best for him. Now, speaking on a defender, this story, if we're talking about, we can recall Aaron Anselmino, if we speak about how perhaps the likes of Tosin has fallen under favour, there is a young centre-back. This is coming from Court Offside. Atalanta's teenage centre-back, Honest Hanor. Yep, I'm not entirely sure if I pronounced that right, has rapidly emerged as one of the most coveted young defenders in all of European football, following an impressive start to life in Bergamo after his summer move from Genoa. So he's only 17, so this is what probably is exciting the Chelsea ownership. Much like, Kendry Pires and Mike Penders and Steva William, they see these 16, 17-year-olds playing well at adult level, and they think, this is for us. They've always said, very early on, they feel like youth is undervalued and they will throw the big bucks at these young men. I feel like developmentally that could be, I don't know how helpful that is for the kids, but, if they feel like they've got the character to sort of ride big transfer fees and go to these big clubs at a very, tender age, then fair dues. Chelsea are widely regarded as one of the most aggressive suitors, with reports suggesting the Blues could be prepared to test Atalanta's resolve, with a bid in the region of 60 million euros. Wow, we must really like him, this young lad. 60 million, big ones. Of course, that's euros. So what's that in pounds? 54 million quid. Oh, it's nothing. It's nothing. Bring the child in, who I've never heard of. Sources close to, the industry have informed Court Offside. Chelsea's recruitment model, of course, prioritises elite young talent with high ceilings. And this perfectly matches this young man's profile, apparently. Meanwhile, Manchester United and Arsenal continue to monitor the development closely. Both clubs are in the market for long-term defensive leaders and view Hanor as a potential cornerstone for signing for the next decade and beyond, really. Not just them, man, from the Premier League, Arsenal, Man United and Chelsea. Apparently Napoli, Bayern Munich have sent scouts to go and see him. Real Madrid have also entered the picture. I've never heard of this boy, and all of the big boys want him. All the big clubs want this 17-year-old defender that plays for Atalanta. Look, I don't for a second doubt the truth in this. If there's a super talented 17-year-old, you'd put the farm on Chelsea Football Club being interested. What do I think in terms of an acquisition? I've got nothing. Ever since, Estevau's come into our lives, I'm kind of, letting them cook to a degree. Do you know what I mean? Even if the hit rate isn't that high, they signed this many children, one's a prodigy. So I'm kind of letting them cook, basically. But what I really want is a little sprinkling of this will help you right now, because we've got a lot of young players that just need, I'm not going to give that really reductive, we just need a really senior leader in the back to sort them out. I'm not even saying that. I just think like a super quality injection. And maybe, you know, that's in positions that we didn't think we needed, you know. A lot of people have been saying that the left wing is the most questionable position at the moment, as well as striker. So you got striker because you might be believers in Delap and Joao Pedro. I kind of am a believer in both, despite my criticism of Joao Pedro's off-the-ball work lately. In terms of their talent and ceiling, I'm a believer. But I think everyone would agree if there was, like, I don't know, bro. Like, I'm trying to think, like, if, like, Igor Thiago was available in the Chelsea squad, would Maresca start him over the others? Do you know what I mean? Or a Jean-Philippe Mateta, like, you know, the 28-year-old French striker from Crystal Palace, 29. I'm trying to think of other, like, you know, options to test the theoretical resolve of the Chelsea manager. Like, I'm wondering if there were these other, like, conventional sort of middle-class strikers. Would they start over Joao Pedro and Liam Delap? Because I think a lot maybe would. Like, Serhou Guirassy, you know, of the aforementioned Borussia Dortmund. Like, if he's available to Maresca, does he go, well, yeah, I'm going to start this guy over, you know, Delap or Joao Pedro and certainly Guiu? I mean, it's very interesting, isn't it? Even when Omega arrives, it's you wonder, like, right, well, you could always upgrade that until one of those strikers become Chelsea's, like, iconic nine, which is possible, but maybe not really, you know, really probable. Until when that happens, there'll always be this conversation of, oh, they need this better player. Anyway, in terms of the right wing, I don't think anyone's got any concerns. We've got Neto, who's playing out of his skin this season. There's Estevao, which is, you know, a superb, talented wild card. Left wing, you get moments with, like, you know, Garnacho, and then Gittins a little bit less so, but he's, you know, still scored that great goal and had a few assists and looked really good in moments. But again, it's nowhere near as undeniable as the right wing, and indeed, like, say the fullbacks. I know Cucurella's been off the boil. But, and you know, Gusto's dropped a stinker recently. But ultimately, Cucurella and Reece James, and Gusto sometimes, and hopefully eventually Aurelia Hato, you think fullbacks are fine. And despite what I'm about to talk about with Elliot Anderson, you think there's a lot of talent available in the midfield. But, yeah, I mean, centre-back is Maresca's thing, isn't it? It's so important for him. And you know, Cole still should be coming back this season. But you just can't bank on it. You can't, like, take it into consideration. Like, when then Colwell will be back in, you know, February or something. And he'll help us in the final run-in of the season. Because you just don't know how he's going to come back, basically. So let's talk about what David Ornstein said. He's spoken to NBC Sports Soccer. NBC, of course, speaking about Elliot Anderson, the Nottingham Forest central midfielder. Now, I don't think he leaves in January, and I don't think Chelsea would try and execute such a high-value deal in January where they'd be in a weaker negotiating position. But Ornstein has confirmed how, you know, Bayern Munich as well as a few top Premier League clubs are in for him, including Chelsea. So this is a real thing. This is a real transfer link, and this is a huge... I said it in, was it yesterday's video or the day before? I find it very difficult not to get terribly excited about Elliot Anderson joining Chelsea. He starts in Thomas Tuchel's England midfield at the moment. He's an incredibly important player for that. And I know we've got immense midfield talent. We've got the, you know, the pair of over £100 million men in Caicedo and Fernandes. And we've got theoretical high-level backup in Santos, Lavia, and Sugo. And of course, Reece James plays in there now. But I do wonder what Maresca is thinking, because he isn't like a 17-year-old with a high ceiling, is he? So I know he's young, Elliot Anderson, but how old is he? He's 23, so he's, you know, he turns 24. He's only just turned 23 actually in November last month. God, yeah, it's freaking Newcastle had to sell him, right? Didn't they? Ouch. I mean, they've got a good midfield, Newcastle, but still, ouch. losing him, and he's going to be well over £100 million. Look, loads of clubs need Elliot Anderson. You'd argue Man United need him way more than Chelsea, like way more than Chelsea. But despite that, look, if Lavia comes back and someone could say to me, Jan, Romeo Lavia is going to be available, Chelsea are going to do what they did to Reece James and hopefully what they're sort of doing with Wesley Fofana and essentially successfully rehabilitate these players from long-term injury problems, they will do the same to Romeo Lavia. Then I'll be like, well, the game's sewn up. Him and Santos are great rotational options behind Fernandes and Caicedo, and we now see Reece James like bossing midfield. I think we're fine. I think we're fine, but of course, maybe Chelsea know something that I don't, and they're just looking at Lavia thinking this kid's never gonna properly come good to the level we need. I hope he does because he's got such a high ceiling, but we'll see what happens. Like I said, it's amazing that Chelsea are genuinely and authentically interested in Elliot Anderson because I do believe Ornstein. But it's like, this doesn't seem like the most problem position. But then again, some maybe tacticos will tell you, yeah, Chelsea have got really talented midfielders, but you drop a profile Anderson in there next to Caicedo, and or you have a midfield three of Reece James, Caicedo, and Anderson. Good luck. Do you know what I mean? To the opposition. Right. So we're gonna hop over now to to the ESPN. What's this article called? Transfer window preview. What do Europe's big clubs need? So they've asked. It's classic, like emulating the transfer deal sheet when they go through the big hitters. So you got your Arsenals, your Man Cities, your Villas now, title challenging Villas, but Chelsea as well. So let's see what they're saying for Chelsea in terms of budget. Chelsea must maintain a positive balance for the season and next to comply with UEFA punishments. Of course, we are because we sold these hotels to ourselves, the women's team, which kept us really safe and comfortable with PSR, which is the profit and sustainability rules. It doesn't let that, UEFA doesn't take that into account. They don't let you do that. So we were in trouble with UEFA, but apparently we're navigating that in well or enough. There's good communication there. Money is available though, but their spending power would be significantly increased by players outgoing, which we can imagine a couple, leaving. So what does the team need? So this is obviously very subjective. It depends who you ask. Enzo Maresca wanted a centre-back at the end of the summer due to injuries elsewhere, but Chelsea decided against entering the market. Of course, that goes back to what I said about this that kid from Atalanta, the potential recall of Aaron Anselmino. When's Levi Colwill going to be ready? So many things to consider with a centre-back. They also looked at a deal, of course, for Milan goalkeeper Mike Maignan, but walked away due to the finances involved. Yeah, it's so weird now. It's almost like, we offered 18 million. They wanted 30. I think this is euros as well. So we were like, nah. Not for a guy with 12 months left on his deal who's not going to re-sign, who's, north of 30. And then Rob Sanchez turned into one of our players of the season. So let's keep that, percolating in the background. This ESPN, and again, these guys, objectively, they probably need a goalkeeper. The jury's out. I'm not going to make a decision. I was so certain Chelsea needed a new goalkeeper in the summer, and now Rob's playing undeniably well, but I'm not going to let myself get hurt until he's completed a season of playing well. A centre-back, which again is subjective, because Levi will return, Joshua Champong may be trusted more, and Aaron Anselmino will return from loan, and Mamadou Sarr. There's a huge roster there of players that, maybe are playing well. The biggest one here is a top-class striker to compete for the Premier League title. That's what I think everyone agrees with. Chelsea need a top-class striker. I'd be very interested for you guys to comment, down in the comment section, who you think, and don't just say Victor Osimhen. That ship has firmly sailed away. And, I've already made my case how I think Chelsea should try and sneak Harry Kane to Chelsea, but I think it won't happen now. I think maybe after his first season at Bayern Munich, had Pochettino stayed, maybe. Not that I wanted Poch to stay, but sort of creating a scenario where maybe Kane would have come over, but, So yes, we'll striker potentially. So who are the major targets? The word at Stamford Bridge right now is they're focused on the summer more than January. Of course, that's what we've been hearing. But this club is attracted to a deal if the right circumstances arise. Chelsea are not expected to revive a deal for Maignan as things stand. There you go. Aston Villa star Morgan Rogers is of interest. Yeah, the man on fire at the moment. He will cost a lot of money. He's just signed a new long-term deal. He's playing out of his skin. Apparently, he's first choice number 10 for Tuchel's England. You know, much like the first choice sort of holding 6 in Elliot Anderson, the aforementioned. If Chelsea buy like England starters, we're gonna be broke basically afterwards. Of course, we've already signed Sporting winger Giovanni Kenda, who, by the way, just had successful surgery on an injury that he'll be rehabilitating. Of course, he arrives in the summer, man. In the summer. And he, of course, arrives with Strasbourg striker Emmanuel Omega, their captain and starting centre-forward. He will arrive in the summer with Giovanni Kenda. You forget that. Like, for pre-season, people like Anselmino, Sarr, Kenda, Omega are going to bowl up pre-season, and we're going to be like, oh yeah, you know, look at all this talent. Now we haven't actually signed anyone yet, and we've got all these extra players. Paez will return from Strasbourg, and you know, Maresca, if he's still the Chelsea manager, we'll get a look at him. And of course, we've got 2 teenagers, Dena Evangelistas, the latest one, and of course Dastan Satpayev, which is the Kazakh striker, the 17-year-old. But I think, like I said before, he's got Strasbourg written all over him, that striker. In terms of who could be leaving, it's Sterling is the impossible exit. Axel Disasi, I think, is the more likely January exit. And Tariq George, I think, of course, is likely to go. And in terms of new contracts, in a word, no. Key players all have long-term deals, and Chelsea have contractual security with their players, which is good, of course. Yeah, man, so that kind of puts us where we're at. I think Chelsea in the January transfer window will be looking to do exits. I'll be very surprised about recalls. But what I do think will happen, maybe, is if there is a market opportunity. Sorry for using that term. You know, if that does arise out of somewhere, then perhaps they'll try and take advantage of that and make an acquisition in January. Yeah? Alright, guys, so that's probably it for today. Let me know your thoughts. Thank you for joining me as always. Thank you for liking and subscribing on YouTube. And, you know, go check it out on Spotify. Follow Football Therapy Podcast and give me 5 stars, and I'll be very grateful for that. Can't speak English. The video's gone on for too long. Right, see you back here tomorrow, hopefully. Take care of yourselves. Peace.